Hello there, this is Jeff Erdman, E.D.S. Inc. Shandon. We've got a little issue that we have to resolve, and it's going to take just a little bit of work on the Oliver lathe and drill press. What the situation is on some of the hinges that we sell with our doors, especially doors that are out swinging, it requires that the hinge be NRP, or non-rising pin. And I'm going to bring this up close to you, and I'm going to show you that there's a little set screw in the hinge that holds the pin in the hinge, so nobody can take and drive that pin on out. So I'll bring that over so you can see that. There's a little hole right there, and in that hole is a little Allen set screw. Now the pin has a groove in it all the way around, and that set screw goes into that pin, and that's what prevents the pin from being popped up through the top and somebody just pulling that door off out of the opening and getting into the building. So it's a security feature that needs to be in on the hinge. Now unfortunately we had some hinges that were supplied to us. We had some hinges supplied to us that did not have this feature. It was ordered in the hinge, but the manufacturer didn't send them to us with that feature in it. So what we're going to show today is how we can take a hinge that does not have that feature and put it into it. And all it really takes is drilling a hole through here, and then taking that pin, putting it in the lathe, and grooving it out so that the set pin can set into that, or the set screw rather, can set into the pin and prevent it from being lifted out of the hinge or pushed out of the hinge. So that's what we're going to do today, and we'll start off by taking these hinges apart, taking them over to the drill, and then drilling the little holes that we need for the sets. So we have to take them over to the drill press so that we can drill them for our little set screws that we're going to be using in here, the little Allen set screws that will prevent the pin from popping out. So let's go ahead and we'll get with it. So let's see, we're going to have to move over so you can see me. So the first thing that we have to do is remove the pin from the hinge. And the way we do that is there's a little hole in the bottom, and we drive that on out. So we get ourselves a little punch. We'll insert that into the hinge. We'll drive the hinge pin out. So here's the hinge pin, and that hinge pin has no notch in it whatsoever for the set screw to embed into. So if we just put the set screw in the hinge itself, then they would still, even with that very tight, they would be able to take a hammer like I did and a center punch and hammer that out. So what we want to do is, once we're done putting our set screw in, we'll bring this in here, we'll mark it, and then we'll make a groove all the way around the set pin so that the set screw will embed into the pin and prevent it from being shoved out of the hinge. So let's pull apart our other hinge. We have two of them that we have to do. There's our other pin. Now we're ready to go. Now when we look at this existing pin, you notice that it's right back on the shoulder, right close to the leaf of the hinge itself. So we're going to try to make, put our set screw in exactly the same spot on this. We're going to put it on the center knuckle, and we're going to put it as close to the hinge leaf as we can to get that screw hidden when the door is closed. If you don't do that, as the door opens, you'll see that set screw. And when it's closed, you can see the set screw. So somebody could feasibly see that set screw and drill it out. So we want to avoid that. So we're going to make sure that we set it right here. So when it's closed, when the hinge is closed, there's no way that they're going to see that. And there's no way for them to get into this door by drilling that out. So we're going to make our hole right in here. And we're going to go ahead and measure the distance between the flange and the center of that hinge. And we've got, oops, I'm going to have to get it onto American standards. Zero it out. Imperial measurements rather. So we're at about 0.1, 0.2. So it's 0.200. Yep, 0.200 of an inch. That's close to a quarter, not quite a quarter. So that's where we're going to put our little set screw. So I'm going to go ahead and mark these two parts, nearly a quarter of an inch from the edge, and we'll countersink them. Okay, we're going to go ahead and measure over. First, let's see what we got as far as our width of our knuckle. Okay, we're 0.739. Okay. I'm going to take this down to a solid surface here. And we'll center punch it. There we go. Now we'll go ahead and we'll do the same with this one. Now we'll center punch this next one. Sorry, you can't see that. Okay, I got that a little bit off. Must have moved before I hit it. There we go. Right where I want it. Okay, I'm going to go over and set up the drill, and then I'll bring you on over there. Okay, we're over at the Buffalo drill press, and we've got the hinge set up with the drill right where I center punched it. And you might notice that I have cloth here in my vise. Since this is a finished product, I don't want to destroy the finish on it by clamping it. So I just put some cloth in there. It takes a whole lot of pressure to hold it. This is soft. This will be a brass base metal since it's meant for exterior. So we'll go ahead and we'll start our drill and drill through that puppy. There we go. More through. Okay, we'll pull this one out. Sorry for that arm across there. And I don't know if you can see that, but that's our hole right through there. And then we'll be tapping that out. So let's put our other one in. But the next step, what we'll do before we tap these is we'll actually put the pin in here. And we'll mark it so that we can, there we go, we got our little hole right there. And we'll put our pin in and mark it for our, where this is going to show up at, and then we'll be able to put our pins in the lathe and trim them down. So that's where we're going next. Okay, so each of these have been marked and where the set screw will go. And we're going to take it over and we're going to actually take this on the lathe and clean this up all the way around so that there's a groove all the way around this pin so that the set screw will engage with that groove. So let's go on over to the lathe and we'll get that done. Okay, we have our pin set up in our lathe. We have our cutting tool set up in the lathe. And you might recall on a previous video we showed how we made this tool post to hold our 1-inch tooling that was originally designed for our Monarch lathe, but since my Monarch is not running, we're running it on this old 1943 Oliver 25A wood lathe. And we're going to actually take about 1/4 inch off this, maybe about 3/32 deep. I'll have to go get my measuring tools because I didn't bring them over here. And so that little set screw can set down in there and hold that pin in the hinge. So I'm going to grab my measuring tool. I'll be right back. Okay, we've got our hinge pin in the lathe, all in the jaws. Our mark is right here. That's where our set screw would go into that hinge pin. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut a gap, maybe about 3/16 wide to 1/4, and maybe 3/32 deep to so that little set screw will capture this pin and prevent it from being pulled out of the housing, the knuckles. So let's see, we're currently about 3/8 of an inch is what our diameter of this pin is. So what we're going to do is go ahead and turn on our lathe and we'll start cutting that slot. Position that just about right. And there we go. now we'll go back, we'll tap those two knuckles, and we should be good. Yeah, that feels nice, and no burrs on it or anything. That should slide right into the knuckle. You might wonder, why do I use the live center on this while I'm doing it? More than trying to prevent flex in the part, this chuck is installed with a Morse taper, and if I don't have constant pressure, this sometimes comes out. So I know it shouldn't do that, but on occasion it has. So I just find it better to run my live center on it and keep that pressure. Even if I'm working something really close to the jaws, I'll put the live center on it, and it kind of makes it difficult to work with tooling sometimes, but I'll figure a way around that so that I can keep this chuck from coming out. It's come out once or twice on me, and it's kind of it'll mess up your part, and a little bit scary as well. So let's move back over to where we're going to tap these things. Okay, now I have the hinge in the vise here, and now we're going to take the tapping tool, and we're going to tap that hole. This is a 632. You have to be very careful with a small tap like this, because you could very easily break that. So you have to make sure that you set it in straight and start it straight without too much wobble. It's very difficult to do with a hinge because it's hard to get it positioned to where you have the pressure on it. And it's good to back that out a little bit. We've lubricated that, so we're good. We pre-lubricated it before we brought you on. We're going to go on down. There we go. We're all the way through now. I'm just going to clean that out real good, spin her back out. And we're good. Okay, so 632. Now we've got this right here. Let's see if I can get it into the camera. This is our little set screw, a little teeny set screw on a Allen wrench. And we're going to set that down into that hole. And we're going to flush it out. There we go. Now it's just a matter of assembling the hinge. So we just take these two leaves. Whoops, get them down where the camera is. So these are your two leaves of your hinge. Okay, so it opens and shuts. You drive this pin on down in there. Okay, into the hole, and you see where that little the little spot we made on the pin, so that set screw will hit that perfectly, and then we have a hinge that is now would be prevent a violation of the security of that door. So that's how we would do it. I want to thank you for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you next time.